Hello, I'm Per Cromwell and I'm from Sweden. Let's see, I need to find my clicker. Before I start, I would like to tell you how I ended up in retail, how I ended up on this stage. And it all started when I was 12 years old. I wanted to buy the Star Wars ship, the Millennium Falcon. And it cost a fortune, and I realized with my weekly allowance, it would take forever to earn enough money. I would probably get to become an old man, or at least 15 years old, before I could afford it, so I needed to come up with a better way. And then some of my friends, they were selling newspapers Sunday mornings. I thought this could be a good way to earn the extra money that I needed. So I started, but it was not that easy that I had imagined. I had to get up really early in the morning, but not too early, because then knocking on people's door Sunday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, I would sort of upset them. You needed like perfect timing, and I was not that good at that, so I stopped doing it. I thought that there must be a simpler way to sell my newspapers. Then one day, Olaf came knocking on my door. Olaf was my neighbor. He was 1 year older than I was and the strongest boy in school. And Olaf was also full of ideas. This was before there was a bridge between Malmö, where I come from, and Copenhagen. This was before internet. This was before smartphones, meaning that waiting for the next ferry was extremely boring. Olaf had a very simple idea. Why don't we go down there and sell newspapers to the people waiting in line? Well, sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. We packed newspapers, took our BMX bikes, went down to the harbor. Knocked on the first car window. An old man waved down the window. Hey, vill du köpa kvällsposten? Ja, visst. Knocked on the next car window. Hey, you want to buy a newspaper? Sure. Soon, we were all out of newspapers. We continued to do this for a couple of weeks until we realized that on the other side, on the Danish side, there are as many cars waiting. Olaf would cover the Swedish side, I would cover the Danish side. By splitting up, we could double up on our earnings. Off I went, my first international business trip. And it was a success. I made the tour so many times that the crew on the ferry started to recognize me, and they invited me to the crew canteen and offered me a free lunch. But they also offered me something very special. Sweden in the 80s was a little bit like East Germany. So when they offered me free Coca-Cola, I knew that this was a success. Quite soon after, I was able to buy the Millennium Falcon. But I grew up. I stopped selling newspapers on Sunday morning, and instead I founded an advertising agency with my cousin, Thomas. And we built stuff. For instance, we built a flying carpet for dogs, and in between we also did some activistic work. It was fun. It was great fun, and we were fairly successful. But I could never really find my way back to the feeling of having hacked the system, to the feeling of success, of getting free Coca-Cola and counting more money than I've ever earned sitting in that canteen on that ferry. Then one day, Maria came. She had just been refused a job at Starbucks because her hair was too blue. So we thought we should help her to build her own cafes. So we did this. Wheelys, a bicycle cafe chain. Getting coffee to the people where they need it. Outside the railroad station in the morning, or the football stadium in the evening. And guess what? In 3 years, Maria and her cafes is in more countries than Starbucks. We were onto something. Bringing stuff to the people where they need it, when they need it, seemed to be a good idea. But first, let me walk you through the history of retail. Don't worry, it's going to be very brief, because basically only one major thing has happened during the last 100 years, and that is when retail went from being a guy standing behind the counter taking orders from customers, running into the warehouse, getting the stuff, coming back to the counter, giving the stuff to the customers, getting the money, bye-bye. 2, the guy actually allowing the customers to run around in the warehouse themselves, take what they want, come to the counter, pay him, bye-bye. To retail, this is what the combustion engine was to horses. Everything else is basically fine-tuning. And then you could argue, okay, online. Well, online is basically just digital mail order, and it's not really working that well, right? Because basically half of what I order is being sent back, because you have to either sacrifice your morning or your afternoon to wait for the delivery guy, because they never really know when they're going to show up. They're going to call you, but they never do. Then after waiting 3 hours, you pop out for 5 minutes just to get some bananas, come back and you miss them, right? So even if online is not perfect, physical retail is suffering. 2017 is a record year when it comes to physical retailers closing down, but there seems to be a conflict of trends. Some stores close down, but Apple open up new stores every day. Alibaba open up their stores. Amazon open up their stores. Is Jeff an idiot? No. Jeff knows something that most people seem to have forgot. That is that we live in a physical world, and we want to live in the real world. And until we are able to teleport ice cream into people's mouths, physical retail will win over online in more than one way. Something happened this year, something that most people don't know. It was actually May 28th, 2017. For the first time in the history of retail, or for the first time in the history of mankind, more people searched for nearest than for cheapest. And if you look at the trend, soon nearest will be much more relevant than cheapest. And what does this mean for retail? Well, this means everything. That means that people are willing to go out around the corner to pick up their stuff rather than having it delivered home. This is brilliant news if you have a store, but it's also brilliant news if you want to build a store, which was what we wanted. So we took retail as we knew it, the guy and the counter, and then we removed the counter and we removed the guy, and we thought, let's start from scratch. If retail would have been invented today, how would it look like? And we wanted a solution that not only worked in urban areas. We wanted a solution that worked in Sörfors. Sörfors is a small place up in northern Sweden. This is where Thomas comes from, my friend, cousin. And this is also where I spent quite a few of my childhood summers. Sörfors is also a place that hasn't seen proper retail in a very, very long time. So we needed to figure out, okay, what do we need? Retail is not about buying cheap and selling expensive. That's simple. Everyone can do that, right? Retail is about logistics, to get something from A to B, from producer to consumer, as fast as possible. And if you're close, logistic becomes much simpler. So how we imagine the future of retail is a store that's always close. Like always, always close, really close. Close when you're at the club, close when you're at home, close when you're at work. The store should know you. Know could remind you if you forget to buy something. The store could have everything that you need when you need it. The store would play your favorite music. If it's more than 70% chance of rain the next 15 minutes, the store would order you a taxi. If it's more than 70% chance of rain the next 15 days, the store should offer you a trip to Aruba. If you find something in the store and order it, or online, you should be able to pick it up the same day or the following day. And if you suffer a heart attack, the store should be able to bring you back to life. This is Mobi. Mobi is an intelligent store. It knows what products is being needed, where and when. It's staffless, and it's always open. And since it's mobile, it can go wherever the customers are. It can even go to Sörfors. Mobi is not really online, not offline. It's a little bit of both. It's a solar-powered electrical vehicle. And thanks to Maria, it has great coffee. We built Mobi as a logistical solution by turning the delivery truck into the store, or the store into a delivery truck. And we also wanted to make it affordable. Because imagine that you would like to build your own car using local people, builders here in London. That would cost 10 times as much as building or as buying a Toyota. Still, this is what happens with stores. It's even worse, actually, because the more stores you build, the more expensive it gets. Builders are able to raise their prices if they are in demand. Rents go up if an area becomes attractive. This is insane. This is actually the opposite of what we would like to do. We would like to mass produce stores, make them really cheap. Small, smart, autonomous stores that we can deploy, send them to the football stadium when there is a football match, send them to the ferry terminal when there is people waiting, send them to the beach resort when it's vacation time, turning parking lots into prime retail spaces. And by doing this, we can allow these Mobis to be everywhere, but they can also be nowhere. They will adjust to their environment. Building 10 of these will change retail in a small city like Malmö, where I come from. Building 10,000 of these will change the world of retail. And this is not a fantasy. We already operate one outside Shanghai right now. We've already started selling them, and we are currently working on the next generation of mobile stores and Mobi marts. So this is our vision of the future of retail. So look out for Mobi, or maybe you don't have to. Mobi will look out for you. Thank you.